Okay, I'm gonna try to speak louder. Um, so it's my first talk. You'll see me crash at some point. I'll just have to reboot and we'll see. Um, so make XMPP sprint again. It started with an idea that a few people in the community, in the XMPP community, had um, because I felt, and other people also felt, that we weren't enough visible. That what was done in the open community wasn't enough visible, and so after discussing that with, I guess actually I have, yes. Oh, I forgot that. uh, I'll start here. You might know my name, Pep, on the XMPP channels, almost all of them. uh, I work at Collabora, free software consultancy, and I'm active in the XMPP community as a developer, mostly client-side development, and server operator, and I also do support in a few chat rooms for different projects. Yeah, why? So as I was saying, the idea started because a few people thought we weren't visible enough in the community, the public community, and there was quite a lot to improve in every implementation or even protocol still. So we decided to gather together and organize. The first event was, for me at least, was in Karlsruhe in Germany at GPN, and I was there with JC Brandt, the author of Converse.js, and Daniel. I don't know how to pronounce his name. The author of Conversation. And we worked on OMIMO at the time, the end-to-end encryption mechanism. And from there, we discussed with JC that he had similar kind of events in the Plone community, the Python Plone community. And so I wanted to organize similar events. So that's where it started. And so why? To improve the ecosystem in general, but also it was my first event where I got to meet XMPP people. So that was a good opportunity to meet more members of the community, and in general, it's quite useful to get people who know what they're talking about, so you can also implement it in your client or server implementation. And yeah, so transmission of knowledge, and for me the best, what I get out of this is the motivation. So it's like really focused on 2-3 days, and I can do what I do in 6 months time usually. Yeah, so this talk is mostly about how for you to organize your own sprints, and how to for these events to become so I don't have to push you to do them. So what do you want in a sprint? You want to define what you're going to do. So what is the sprint for? Choose a topic, or maybe multiple topics, depending on the number of people you have. Yeah, so the first sprint we had in Cambridge, there was a few disparate topics, but it was quite focused still. We decided to work on in-band registration, so for easier onboarding, or there are also a few people working on bookmark conversion. So from bookmark has been a fun story in the XMPP community. So we decided to fix a few things, a few useful things, I think. And then for whom, our sprint in general are really contributor focused. So we invite anybody who would like to contribute to the ecosystem in general. So well, mostly developers, but also translators or people willing to work on documentation or UX in general, user experience, and also give us feedback on the implementations. Yeah, so you're gonna have to decide dates. We generally start thinking, so people, I know people give the idea that they might want to do a sprint at some point somewhere, and then what usually happens is that I push them a bit to start organizing, and we make a poll, ask around for any interested people, and so we decide dates usually 1-2 months before, not too long before and not too close to the date itself, so people can organize themselves for transportation and accommodation. It's usually organized during a weekend because, well, people might have to take holidays to get to the place, and yeah, they might prefer not to do that in the middle of the week. And yeah, putting these events closer to bigger events like FOSDEM, like we had one on Wednesday. I say Wednesday because Thursday and Friday were the XMPP summit, so it was all packed together. Might attract more people, so they just have to take holidays for that event, that big event. The venue, I feel the venue is the hardest thing to get. Well, depending on, for my case, it was actually quite easy. I just had to ask. Collabora sponsored the venue for the first event in Cambridge, in the UK. So we had I could use the office. They also sponsored food. But for others who don't have this opportunity, you could ask for any association around you. I know the last sprint in Brussels was in some association I don't know the name of. And the one before in Düsseldorf was in Chaosdorf, one of the CCC local branch, so hackerspaces. Or you could even do it at someone's place, or Airbnbs, or I don't know, squats, or wherever you can find a space. It doesn't have to be. I mean, it can just be a place to hang around. It doesn't have to be official or anything. It's, but yeah, I can help. I can ask people if ever you have an interest in organizing one. And we can help you find sponsors or anything. Accommodation, transportation is this might be the hardest bit for people coming to your event. It's going to be the more costly. Not everybody can come, and that's fine. Don't force people to come to your event if it's a bit too far. Often it might even be more expensive for people closer to you to come than people at the other end of the world, because Ryanair or so it's fine if not everybody can come. Few possible solutions for that is organizing more sprints in different places. So yeah, around the same theme maybe, or not, depending on the interests. Or I wrote video conferencing for the first sprint in Cambridge. JC from Converge.js wanted to come, but he couldn't, and at the last minute we decided to have something video conference, so it was there, and we would communicate through that whenever we had questions or stuff like that. He also did a nice presentation on the client implementation and some details. But yeah, it's not the same experience for the remote participants, but it might be useful sometimes. And the activities, what we actually do. Um, Not everybody knows the whole community, so introductions are useful. Um, then we have some kind of collaborative pad, so we use Etherpad or whatever you fancy to document what's happening in the event or what, even before the event, what people want to talk about, where, when, and any useful detail. What if you have any recommendation as the organizer, if you have any recommendation for accommodations they could use, or and anything you can think of before. Mostly agenda and what you're planning to do after during the event. So then, defining the agenda, we do that generally on the first morning. When we arrive at the place, we spend an hour or about an hour talking about what we're here for and really defining what we're going to do and who is interested in what topic. So we lay out the topics and we count the number of people interested and we form maybe small groups or maybe not. Maybe there are topics that are worth taking time at the beginning altogether. The agenda, it's also useful, it might be useful if not everybody knows what is going to happen in the sprint to define the agenda beforehand, so they can come and having researched a bit and not lose time during the sprint. Then we have the fun part, the hacking and discussions. So that's a big chunk of the weekend mostly. And yeah, food and drinks, it's usually done on the spot. It's not at regular hours. We will go whenever we're hungry, or a small group will go to a supermarket to bring back stuff, and often it happens on the place. We eat on the place, or at night we decide to go out and go for dinner in a restaurant somewhere. Yeah, and the last point is that's one of the most important things I think. Do a retrospective on what you've worked on, how it went, and what's left, what's the progress. It helps you to know where you are. It helps the others that might not have been working with you, and it helps the community in general to know what happened and how they can help you maybe. Then writing about it is also a pretty important point. Once you have all the data you've put in that pad, you can write about it. It will help promote the event and the technology in general, or promote your project maybe, or some projects. Thanks the sponsors, if you had any, and encourage future events. And encourage people organizing more events of this type. And I think that's about it. That's some links for what we've done. And so there's the first one was at GPN in Karlsruhe. It wasn't technically at that spot, it wasn't really called a sprint yet, but it was the idea. And then the one in Cambridge and the one in Düsseldorf. And there's probably more blog article coming. The one in Brussels just was this week, so I guess we'll do that soon. And that's about it. Any questions?
Thanks for your talk. What do you think is a good frequency for a sprint like this? How often, how far are they apart? And was it like too soon or too long?
It will depend. For the moment, I don't think doing them too often is a good idea because we don't yet have the resources to do them too often. We might be missing people, or yeah. ideally, I would like to have one sprint every 6 months close to you. Maybe more if we manage to do that, but that'd be a good goal, I think, already.
All right.
Are there bridges made with other protocols in order to and made by default the XMPP protocol in some products or so on to sponsor, even if there aren't ready developments? Do you communicate a lot with other promoters of other protocols?
Not at the moment, but it could be an idea. Yeah, sure.